Welcome to the Mastering the Game of Life podcast. In this podcast, there'll be insights around 3 key areas to mastering the game of life: purpose, prosperity, philanthropy. Your host, Paul Lowe, the third sector mentor, is the founder of Hearts Global CIC, which along with many other of his charitable commitments has been responsible for positively impacting thousands of people's lives, particularly young people from disadvantaged communities. Author of Mastering the Game of Life, From Pain to Purpose, and Speaking from Our Hearts books. Introducing your host, Paul Lowe.
A very warm welcome, everyone. It's Paul Lowe here. Many thanks for listening in to this Mastering the Game of Life podcast, where I'd like to talk to you about coaching and mentoring, and more specifically, share some tips from a world-leading expert in the field of peak performance. At this point, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Jim Britt, an internationally recognised leader in the field of peak performance and personal empowerment training. Jim is an author of 13 best-selling books and has presented seminars throughout the world, totaling over 1 million people from all walks of life. Jim has served as a success counsellor to over 300 corporations worldwide and also coached and mentored Anthony Robbins for the first 5 years in business. Jim, a very warm welcome to you and sincere gratitude for taking the time to share with us some of your extremely powerful insights. Something I can personally vouch for, having significantly benefited firsthand from your mentorship. But before deep diving into these amazing insights, I'd just like to start, Jim, if I may, by asking a few questions that will get the audience the chance to get an insight into Jim the man, so to speak. What's your favourite record, Jim, or your favourite piece of music, and why?
Well, that's a good question. I don't... Personally, right now, don't listen to a lot of music. I like if I'm in my car driving, I like the quiet time, so I never turn on the radio. So I don't listen to much music. But if I think back, some of my favorite actually was Elvis, because it kind of takes me back to my childhood, and so I would say that that's probably one of my favorite artists.
Okay, and was there a particular track of Elvis's, Jim? Was you more sort of drawn towards his ballads or his rock and roll?
Yeah, probably some of his ballads. Actually, some of all of it. But I know I saw a movie just this weekend, and they played one of Elvis's "Can't Help Falling in Love with You." And I always thought that was a great piece of music.
Yeah, summarizes human nature, doesn't it? So what about your favorite book, Jim? I mean, obviously, as the author of 13 bestsellers, you're fairly au fait, as I can testify, being in the Change Book 9 series, around books. So what about your favorite book?
Well, I'd have to say that the one that had the most impact on me, probably 3 books. The first one would be the first book I wrote, because Rings of Truth, because writing that book probably had more impact on my life than anything I've ever done, because it's my story, and what I've learned over the years, what I've gone through to learn those things. So that would be one of my favorites. But prior to that, book that changed my life was a book called 3 Magic Words by U.S. Anderson. Great book, written in the 50s. You still find it in bookstores everywhere. And then in addition to that would be the Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, which changed some of my views of how I looked at my life and looked at the world.
3 magic words. I've made a note of that, Jim, and there's a reason I've made a note of that. We'll come to that in a bit. Thank you. What about films, Jim? Is there anything film-wise that stayed with you over the years?
No, not really. I mean, I love movies. I usually go to one about every week. But I go there to be entertained. I mean, yeah, there's been lots of great movies out with a message as well, but nothing that really that I can think of that stands out. But, I like action movies, 007s, that type of movie. I like to be entertained. I usually appreciate most all movies. I've seen some that I wouldn't recommend, but I've seen a lot of them that I thought were very entertaining, and I enjoyed going to them.
Okay. So on the theme then, Jim, of inspirational books, films, music, who's the most inspiring person you've ever met?
Well, I think first of all would be the person in the mirror, because let's see, the most inspiring I ever met. I spent one of my very close friends, starting in around 1970, was Jim Rohn, and of course Jim has passed away, but he was one of the most inspiring speakers and personal development experts out there, most quoted person, I think. But Jim and I were very close friends for about 40 years prior to his passing. And we also spent 10 years together in business. And I think even though I never really looked at Jim as a mentor, we kind of get give and take on both sides. I helped get his name out there, and he got me involved basically in the personal development field. So Jim was very inspiring. His mentor, Bill Bailey, was really one that was responsible for having a major impact on my life at an early age of 22, just from a talk that he did that I was sitting in on. Very inspiring. I've met a few billionaires, Bill Bartman, who recently passed away, but Bill was the 25th richest man in America, went from borrowing $14,000 to being worth, multi-billions of dollars. So, it was pretty inspiring hearing his story and knowing him. I'm just getting ready to do a collaborative book series for the network marketing industry with Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank. Pretty inspiring story, what he's done with his life. A few people, I couldn't pin any one down to say that was the most inspiring, but I've met a lot of people that have inspired me just from their stories and what they've done and the example that they've set and the people they've helped.
Okay. So in terms of how you ended up, Jim, as a peak performance and personal empowerment practitioner, was that, you've alluded to, obviously, Jim Rohn. Was Jim the sole driver behind that? How did you end up there? How did you end up on this road that you've traveled very, very significantly now?
Well, it's kind of interesting because a lot of people say, well, did you plan to do this? Was this your life's ambition? And I would say, no, I don't really know how I got here in one sense. When I connect the dots backwards, I see how I got here. But, I grew up pretty much in poverty. We were very poor, I would say. We had food on the table, but very little, enough to survive. We had a lot of love in our family. My first job was picking cotton, which is a very, very difficult job. That was at 6 years old. I guess I was a child laborer, but all children back then did the same thing. Growing up in Oklahoma, we had to do it to survive. And I learned from that, though, that working hard was not going to get me ahead in life. And so I went on from there and dropped out of high school in the 10th grade. Was not a very good student at all. My grades that I had were D's and F's, basically. And then went to work in pumping gas in a gas station. Worked there for about a year and a half. And then my dream job was working in the factory on the assembly line, assembling telephone switchboards. So if you ever got a wrong number, it was probably my fault. I probably wired it incorrectly. But I worked there for a few years on the assembly line. And again, both of those jobs taught me that working hard and working 40-hour a week was not going to get me ahead in life. and didn't know what I was going to do. No business background, no money, nothing. And, no college degree or anything like that. So I always dreamed of having some kind of management job. That what chance did I have? And somebody invited me one night to go to a meeting, and they unfolded a business opportunity, and I decided to take advantage of it. And I had $9 in the bank, no way to get any money. But it cost $4,000 to get involved in that business. And back then, $4,000 was a lot of money. I mean, it was more than I was earning in a year. And but I said yes, and I went to 23 banks and loan companies before one finally took a chance on me and loaned me $4,000. I started in that business. My first year, I lost everything I had: my home, my vehicles, my furniture, everything was taken from me. But the only thing they didn't get was my determination, my tenacity. I would not quit. And as a result of that, I probably don't have time on this interview, but a series of what I would consider miracles took place. And the first one was somebody came by and sat with me for about 2 hours and taught me what I should be doing in my business, what I was doing wrong, what I needed to be doing, gave me a few ideas for about 2 hours. And my business took off like a rocket. The next month I earned $2,600, and then it went to $6,000, then it went to $12,000, then it went to, within 6 months, it was $40,000 a month, and it just kept going from there. My second year in business, I earned almost $1 million. So taught me that things can happen pretty fast if you're doing the right things and you're practicing those things every day. The one thing I got good at my first year was talking to people. I just was doing it incorrectly. And my next year, I figured out how to do it. So that's where I met Jim Rohn. That company eventually went out of business and went off international. And Jim and I connected up, and he invited me to join the seminar business, helping him promote seminars of him. And so that's how I got started. I started promoting Jim Rohn, and that evolved into me speaking, doing a lot of presentations, a lot of workshops, a lot of things, initially based on Jim's material, but later started to develop, my own philosophies. And that's how I got into the business. Kind of a long story, but in a 10-year period, Jim and I put over 1 million people through seminars, mainly in the state of California and Arizona. That's how I got started, and I got hooked on it, and I've been doing it ever since. I've probably to date had a couple million people go through my events, and so been a good business for me.
Excellent. One of the questions I get asked quite a lot, Jim, is people say, well, what's the difference between coaching and mentoring? What would be your answer on that?
Well, to me, mentoring might be just somebody that you look up to, that you want to emulate, that you may have a connection with, that you can talk to on occasion, and learn from their example. Maybe have lunch with them occasionally, something like that. Coaching, on the other hand, is more of finding out what people are dealing with, what their blocks are. Helping them to discover those blocks if they don't know what they are that's holding them back in life, whether it be personally or financially or whatever. And then holding them accountable to make changes in their life. So coaching is more of a hands-on, daily, weekly, monthly, however you set it up, but some type of system that you set up to work with people to help them get the breakthroughs in their lives.
Yeah. And what about coaching and therapy, Jim? What's your take on that? How do you view that difference? Coaching
and therapy?
Yes.
Well, a lot of what I do kind of seems like therapy because, people, we're all, you've probably heard the term, that person is set in their ways.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a universal term. They're set in their ways and they're not going to change. Well, we're all set in our ways, and that's our personalities. The problem is sometimes we're set in our ways but our ways aren't getting us where we want to go. So we need to change our ways. The problem lies there is that a lot of people don't know how to do that. In fact, most people don't know how to do it. Otherwise, they would make changes. They know that they'd like to accomplish more, have a better relationship, have better health, whatever it might be that they want in their life, but they have no clue as to what's holding them back, what's stopping them from doing that. They can watch other people doing it right alongside them, somebody earning more money, somebody having a nice relationship, somebody losing weight, but yet something holds them back. It's because they're set in their ways. They're actually, the term I use is they're addicted. They are addicted, just like being addicted to a drug. And that a drug addict can stop using drugs, but then after a while they go, well, maybe just a little bit, and then they'll try a little bit, and then they're back on it again. So unless they've got some way to break through what's causing them to do that in the first place. So I look at emotional healing and the things that people are hanging on to. If you've had a bad relationship, could that affect your business? And the answer is yes. Could it affect you financially? Could being financially strapped, could that affect your relationship? Could it affect your health? Everything interacts. So if you can find a major issue that people are dealing with and help them to break that addictive cycle, because the cycle goes, you have an experience in your life, you start to, a negative experience, for example, and you start to think that maybe that's the way life is. Before long, you start to believe that that's the way life is. And whatever you believe, you always act upon. Yeah. In fact, what we believe to be true, we will go to almost any extreme to prove to ourselves and the outside world that what we believe is true. Even though we want to change it, we'll still go get an end result so that you can say, see, I told you the world is a difficult place, or everybody's mean and ugly, or money's hard to earn, or relationships hard to keep together. We'll go and prove to ourselves and the outside world that what we believe is true. Well, if you act upon that belief, which we do daily, then you'll create another result, and that result will strengthen the initial experience. So you're in this cycle going around and around and around, not knowing you're in it, not knowing how to get out of it. So, to me, the therapeutic approach is to help people break that cycle. And I've done it in 20 minutes after somebody's been in counseling for 20 years, simply knowing where to enter that cycle and how to break it. And when people see it and get a taste of it, all of that starts to unravel and their life starts to change.
As you say, Jim, it's knowing where to go in at that point, because certainly from the work I do, there is so much defensiveness there about, one of the cliches I get thrown back at me, but better the devil, Do it might be painful, but at least I can manage it. Well, can you? Because as you say, it has that knock-on effect, doesn't it, into not just the, what the particular angle may be, i.e. relationships, but every other thing. I liken it to dropping a pebble in a pond. It just ripples, and before you know where you are, those ripples reverberate, and there's major problems that just go on and on and on. And I can certainly, as I'm sure we all can, testify that dominated the biggest part of my life.
Well, the reason people don't change is that even when they see the opportunity to change, it requires experiencing a little bit of pain to get through that, break through that cycle. And people weigh out the pain of changing versus the pain of staying where they are. And most people would rather sink back into what they're comfortable with and say, well, I can just manage this, versus confronting that pain and breaking through it. I have had so many people that are afraid to let go because they're afraid of what will be there if they let go, or who they will become if they let go, because they're so accustomed and suffering with the pain that they have that they're afraid to let go. So it's interesting, what we go through, but we become so accustomed to it I kind of use the example of driving an automobile. When you first get on the road to drive, you think all there is to hold it between the lines. Well, that's the easy part. You got to watch all those other vehicles coming at you, and the stop signs and the red lights and the speed limit and the car behind you and the car in front of you and the car beside you and all of those things. But eventually we become addicted to it. Basically, we adapt and we get in our automobile and take off, and we don't even think about it. We don't think about, we know we see a stop sign, but we don't think about any of the stuff going on around us. We're just aware of it. And the same way with our emotions and our addictions is that we just become accustomed to it, and that's who we are and what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What advice, Jim, would you give to would-be coaches as they take those first tentative steps?
I do my coaching based on experience, and the biggest thing I think in coaching is to ask questions and listen, and if you truly listen, not just to the words that are being said by the person you're coaching, but the meaning behind those. Because if you really think about it, I discovered many years ago that the two things that control all of that addiction and those negative emotions and things are the need for approval and the need to be in control. One of those two. And if you look at anything that's not working in your life, you can always track it back to either a need for approval or a need to be in control. Example, you got let's say a woman and a man are together in a relationship, and the man beats the woman. And it can happen the other way around too. I've seen it. So, but it's an abusive relationship, but yet they stay in it, or they keep repeating that cycle and going into another one. Well, if you really look at it, it's a perfect relationship. The person beating up the other one wants to be in control, and the one getting beat up wants the attention. So it's a perfect relationship. However, the one getting beat up doesn't like it, but yet they like the attention. And then, so let's say the woman gets beat up, she runs the guy off, and he takes off, calls back in a day or something like that and say, please, can I come back? I'll never do this again. And it happens over and over and over. And the woman now is in control. Okay, I'll bring you back, but if this ever happens again, you're out of here. And then he comes back a few days, pretty soon he's beating her up again. So if a person, I always look at those two needs, and if a person, let's say, has a need for approval, then if they can break that cycle and let go of their need for approval, then that relationship either improves or it breaks up. Either way is better than what it is. So I always listen intently to what people are saying, not just the words that they're using, so that you understand the true meaning. But that's, I let people discover their own problems. I don't tell them what their problems are. I'll let them discover whether they have a need for approval or control or whatever it may be. I want them to discover that. So to me, that's the key to effective coaching, is to ask questions, listen, and guide people to discover their own needs.
Yeah. So why, Jim, from your perspective, why do you think anyone should ever consider investing in a coach or a mentor?
So why would they consider being a coach?
No, why would they consider investing in a coach or a mentor?
Oh, well, I would say that it's very difficult for a person to make changes without somebody guiding them. And it doesn't mean it's impossible, but I did myself. I went through a time in my life that I actually quit my profession after I'd trained about 400,000 people, simply because I thought I was happy, but I wasn't. And I had a broken relationship, gone through a divorce, had 2 children living in another part of the country, and I'm living on top of the hill all by myself, and I thought I was happy. So, you know, a lot of people live out their entire life that way, not realizing that there's something missing in their lives. So, coaching, I would say, find somebody that's done what you want to do, or that can guide you to that end result. And you don't want to hire a bricklayer to cut your diamonds, and you don't want to hire a broke person to tell you how to make money. So you want to look for the coach based on the need that you have. But I think coaching is very important, as long as you're being coached by somebody that knows what they're doing.
Okay. Life's purpose, Jim. Why do we need a life's purpose in our lives?
Well, that's a question I get. Probably that question I get more than anything else. How do I know what my purpose is in life? And it's a real simple answer. Your purpose is whatever you're doing right now, because it can't be anything else than what you're doing right now. And what I mean by that is, if you're going through something right now, that's your purpose in life. And once you work through that, you'll get to another level, because every life level, every income level requires a different you. And the you that you are now, you've got to work through that you to become a different you. In other words, you got to reinvent yourself to move to the next level. So, during that time, you also find something that you're passionate about. I'm passionate about personal development, helping other people work through their issues. When I write a book, I'm always thinking about the reader and what they're going to get out of it, not just what I'm writing about, but I want to make sure that every page has got something that's potentially impacting for the reader. Passion and purpose, to me, probably are two different things. What you're passionate about, but the purpose, to me, is going to each life level, working through where you are now to get to the next life level. So you look at where you are now, where you want to go, and your purpose is to make changes to get there. That's the way I see it.
Okay, so in terms of if we didn't have a purpose then, Jim, if we were just meandering, I don't know, day to day, moment to moment, like a ship just drifting in the sea, is kind of how I envisage it. So why would we actually need some kind of purpose? I take on board your point, what you've said there about, it's here and now in the moment, what we're doing, because that's who we are, that's where we are. And, every step is another step. I absolutely understand that. But what I'm saying is, I suppose, and it's kind of tied into vision, we've got a beacon, we've got something that we're drawn towards. It keeps us, I don't know, to use your words, we're passionate about it. And it keeps us on track when, it's very easy, because life does get in the way if we allow it to. So that's why I asked the question, Jim, why do we need a purpose?
Well, I think everybody should have a purpose in life. I think there's a lot of people that don't think that they do. Like you say, they're just kind of drifting through life moment to moment, not thinking about more thinking about survival than anything else. And but I think to change, people have that purpose is probably triggered by a desire for change. Now, a lot of people would say they desire change. You could probably walk out on the street corner and ask 1,000 people if they would desire to have more in their life, to earn more, to travel more, to become more, and almost everybody would say yes. But how many people are going to actually make that change? Very few. Yeah. Because they're more comfortable just drifting through life and getting up and having breakfast and and going to work and coming home and having a drink and watching TV and going to bed. But I think, the problem is that most people have a desire, but they don't take it to the next level, and they don't make a decision to change. And that's really what, can create that purpose in your life once you've decided. And maybe the decision is, I've had it with where I am. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. So somebody asked me the other day, said, why did you join your first business? I said, inspiration and desperation. I didn't have any future. So I was desperate to find something more than working in a factory on an assembly line. So that was desperation. And I was inspired by what I saw and thought, hey, I can get rich doing this. And I finally did, but it took a little while, a little longer than I thought it was going to. But I think, if you can find some purpose in your life versus just drifting through life, I mean, that's kind of a sad way to live, but still, no judgment. If people want to do that, that's a choice that you make.
Yes, absolutely. What about prosperity, Jim? And I'm kind of coming at this from maybe a deservedness angle. Is prosperity important to us, do you think?
Well, prosperity, I guess prosperity comes in a lot of packages, but if you're talking financial prosperity, I think we're all looking for the same thing, and in a sense, we're looking for freedom, and money can offer that. It gives you choices, and a lot of people think, well, I don't have money to invest, or I don't have the experience, or I don't have the business knowledge, or I don't have an opportunity available, or I don't, this or that. Those are all, to me, those are all excuses, because there's plenty of opportunity. Just look around the room you're in right now, and you'll see 20, 30, 40, 50 things that people have made millions of dollars creating. So there's never a lack of opportunity. There's just a lack of vision, a lack of desire and decision to change and be prosperous in your life. And I think people look at where they are instead of where they could be. It's just like, do poor people think in poor terms? And the answer is yes, because they're poor and they're focused on survival. But they could turn that around and have a vision for the future, and realize that there's plenty of opportunity out there, and you see it every single day that somebody has got rich off of some idea that you're going, darn, I should have thought of that.
Yeah.
But prosperity is available all over, and even in places where it seems like there's no opportunity. I mean, there's opportunity to leave. There's an opportunity, somebody does well, and maybe it's not as much in certain countries as others, but still, people break out of that and make changes in their lives. So it's just having that desire to change, and it's like, if you want to be wealthy, whatever wealth is to you, could be $1 million, it could be enough money coming in every month to live, so that you can get up in the morning, decide what you want to do and not what you have to do. Once you've decided to, well, I'd say that people, they want to figure out how before they make the decision to do it. And you just can't. You got to decide to do it no matter what your circumstances are. And then, because once you've decided it, your view of the world changes, your view of opportunity changes, the view that the world has of you changes. So if you want to be wealthy, if you want to be prosperous, you've got to decide to do that before your view of the world changes, so that you see the opportunity to be able to do that. And that's a key thing.
Yeah, and I understand that, Jim. I think for me, that's kind of encapsulating what I said earlier on about the purpose. I use the term beacon. It's that guiding light. I am going there. I am going to reach that destination. It's not going to be easy, and I don't know how I'm going to get there. But you know what? That is where I'm going.
Yeah. Now that's key to get more. I mean, look at anything that you've gotten in your life. And whether it's an education, a college degree, a new car, a new home you purchased, you decided first. You didn't just randomly go out there and go, okay, I think I'll go get a car. Well, where do you go? Well, what kind of car do you want? Well, I've decided I want a BMW. Okay, well, which BMW you want? Well, I want a 760 Li. And you go, okay, well, is that within my budget? Yeah, okay, $120,000. Okay, I've decided that's what I'm going to have. And where do you go to get it? You go to the BMW dealer because you've decided to have that. So it's in anything. I mean, you take an automobile, for instance, there's all kinds of automobiles out there. And the reason people drive, the least expensive automobile they can find is not because that's what they want. It's because that's what they've decided to have. Or maybe they haven't decided to have anything and that's all they can afford. So they've decided, well, the little Chevette that costs, whatever it is, that's why they make those cars for people who don't decide. And they just take whatever they can get. But it's that way in life no matter what. It's not just an automobile. That's just an example.
Philanthropy, Jim. Philanthropy. Do we really need to contribute to others?
Well, I think we all contribute to others, and either as an example for others to follow, or as a warning of what not to do. So but we contribute in that way, whether we know it or not. It's just like if you have children, I have 6 sons. Some of the things I taught them, some of the things that they do that I know they picked up from me just by watching, not from what I said, but from what I did, and they watched me do it. So we're all examples for others to follow. And I've seen it the other way around, where you're an example, or you're an example of what not to do. So and people take on that role and emulate the parent that wasn't doing the right things, that was an alcoholic, or that whatever. They emulate that. So we're all examples, but I think giving back is important. I look at everything I do as giving back. Am I doing it for free? No. Do I do some things for free? Yes. And I'm doing a fundraiser, doing a seminar for about 400 people here in my hometown coming up in September. And they're selling tickets to that event, and they're taking all of that money, and it's being donated to a charitable cause. So, we all can give back in some way. Maybe it's give back in, helping feed the homeless, or whatever it is that excites you. My wife has a nonprofit foundation that she formed a few years, about 6 years ago, to help stop child trafficking, which is a big problem in this country. So she does that for free. None of the money goes to salaries or anything. It all goes to the charity. And you don't have to. You don't have to have your own foundation. Just the heck, a smile is giving back when you meet somebody new. Here's what I do that I would recommend to everybody as far as giving back. Anytime you meet somebody new, I don't care where it is, on an airplane or just in a coffee shop or in a grocery line or whatever, if you're always thinking, what can I do to help this person? What can I do to help them? Well, you don't know what you could do to help them until you start talking, until you start asking questions. Do you live around here? What do you do? What kind of work do you do? Do you have a family? That type of thing. You get in conversations with people. And I find that there's almost always a way to help somebody. And if not, that's okay too, but at least the intention is there. So I think that's, if we all did that, whether in sales or not, instead of trying to think, well, I'm going to sell this person something. Instead, what can you do to help them? Because if you help them, to me in sales, a prospect is, do they have a pain? that needs solving? Do they want to solve it? And can you help them? and if you're prospecting and those three things, then you got a good prospect. But if you don't, then just help the person. So that's giving back. So anyway, that's my philosophy.
Yeah, no, I understand that, Jim. I mean, you've just said something at the end there, which I'd just like to sort of come in on, if I may, around what I perceive now is there is a more heart-centered approach to selling. My mind kind of flips back a few years where selling could be quite aggressive. Whereas I think what's evolved now is this more actually, am I aligned with this person? And more or less exactly what you've just said. I mean, you know, the example on a plane or wherever, talking to an old lady, a stranger, whoever, whatever, just that smile, can I carry your bag? That small gesture. Now, there's no sale there. There's no nothing other than arguably selling yourself for who you are naturally anyway. But I, just from my own perspective, Jim, I've noticed that, you know, in a more professional stroke corporate arena, there is this, dare I say, softer approach now of being perceived as heartfelt rather than give me your money. Would you agree with that? What's your take on that?
Absolutely. I learned that early on. I was on an airplane and I took the last seat on the plane and sat down beside a woman. She struck me as maybe 90 years old. And as soon as I hit the seat, basically, she started talking. You know, how are you doing? And you know, and just, I mean, up to that point, I always thought about sitting beside somebody and trying to sell them something, you know, because I was in sales. And this woman just started talking and she said, what do you do? And I told her, she said, oh my God, what a noble profession. Oh, that's wonderful. And what all do you teach? And this and that. And we went on for an hour during the flight. And then we get off the plane and she said, come with me. And she said, and I didn't know what she meant, come with me, just follow me. And I thought maybe she wanted me to help her with her bags or something like that, you know, because she's a, you know, older woman, but very, very sharp. And she goes over to the payphone. This is back before cell phones. She goes to the payphone and she dials this number and puts in her credit card and all of the stuff we had to go through back then, and gets the guy on the phone. And she says, now, and I'm standing right beside her. She said, I met this gentleman on the plane. And she said, you know, he's one of the sharpest guys and he's got, you know, here's what he does. And I'm so excited about what he does. And I just know that this will be perfect for your company and some of your employees. So I'm going to put you on the phone with him right now and let you talk to him for a minute. And she takes the phone and hands it to me. She said, this is the president of General Dynamics. Wow. Which was a company that employed, I don't know how many thousands of people, 15,000 people in Southern California. I get on the phone. I'm nervous now. I mean, the General Dynamics, the president, and I'm talking to the guy. He invited me out to meet with him, referred me to his director of training, and called the director of training and said, I want you to meet with this guy and listen to what he has to say. They put 1,500 people through our events in the next 45 days. And that was from, you know, not trying to sell, but just listening and, you know, guiding having a conversation with them. So it taught me a lot. And then at another experience where a guy gave me so many referrals, I couldn't even imagine. I didn't count them. I had hundreds of referrals that he gave me. And I asked him later on why he gave me so many referrals. And he said, because you did such a great job with your presentation that I know that if I refer you to one of my friends, that you'll make me look good. And man, I learned from that too. So you get referrals by deserving it, not just by wanting it or asking for it, but actually doing the right job. So I think that heart-centered selling, like you said, is what people are looking for these days.
Absolutely. Yeah. What's the one piece of advice, Jim, you'd leave behind as your legacy? What would that be if there was just one piece? And I know there are literally books full and films and videos and loads of stuff. But the one piece, if I could nail you to the mast metaphorically, what would that be?
Well, You know, I was on a panel in front of about 3,000 people here recently, and I was asked a question. What is the one thing you've learned and applied that's been the most beneficial in your life and your business? And without any hesitation, I said the ability to let go. Because, you know, we hang on to so much that's meaningless, that has no value to us. You know, we have a conflict of some kind, and then we keep rehashing that conflict, you know, for sometime years to come. You know, somebody, you know, you invest in something and you lose money, and you just keep harping on it and talking about it for years and years to come. It does nobody any good whatsoever, and for sure not you. Or you have a conflict in your relationship, or you have a relationship breakup, or you lost your money in business, or you know, whatever it is, it happened. And but the key is it's not happening now unless you bring it into now. So if you've got the ability to cut the tie and let it go, it doesn't mean that it's out of your memory, but you have no emotional charge on it. That you move on with your life and you let go and move on. And some things are harder to let go of than others, but we still have to let go. You know, I remember a woman one time that she'd lost her son, and I can't even imagine what she was going through, but she had been going through it for 10 years. And she said, I just can't let go. And I said, have you ever thought about letting him go? And for some reason that triggered the letting go process. She just was, oh my God, I'm holding him back. And you know, we have to disconnect. Don't take life so seriously, and look at the things that really matter and let go of the things that don't. To me, if there's an action you can take to change something for the better, let go first of any negativity toward that, and then take action. Just like my wife's nonprofit. You know, you can get angry about the fact that there's 300,000 children every year just here in the United States that get kidnapped and put into trafficking. 300,000 a year. You can be angry about that all day long. But if you let go of that and then take action to change it, that's the key. And if you've got a conflict in your life and there's no action you can take, just let it go. Just like worry. Worry takes you nowhere. Worry is it's a made up story. Just like fear is a made up story about some future event. Make up something better. You know, let go of that and live a more sane, stress-free life. So that would be it. Let go. And once you've decided what you want in your life, and realize this, every action you take from this point forward, once you've decided what you want, every action you take is going to move you toward it or away from it. Success at anything is that simple. If you haven't decided, then it doesn't matter. But once you've decided, everything you do from this point forward is going to move you toward it or away from it. All you have to do is ask yourself, observe yourself. And that's the best success tip I could give right there.
Obviously, Jim, I've got the benefit of having worked with you previously, so I almost kind of knew or hoped, if I'm honest about it, that was going to be your response. So when you alluded to at the top of this interview, those 3 magic words, I was kind of thinking, you know, at this point when asking you for that one golden nugget, that was it. Because for me, Jim, when you know, I speak to people in a coaching capacity, well, not just in a coaching, but generally, and I'll say, what are the 3 biggest words you could ever say to anybody? And this would be my legacy, and I've learnt it from you. And of course, you know, usually, I love you, those immortal words come forth. And for me, Jim, it would be, let it go.
Yeah, well, Love is a big word. One of my favorite quotes that I wrote years ago is, when you do what you do with love, you'll have only what you love in your life. And your only option is fear, fear or love. And fear is friction in your thought process. It's conflict, and it's a made up story. And you know, one of the words that I wrote my first book around this word, 367 pages, really about one word, and the word is resourceful. Resourceful, which is defined as, once again, full of source. And source is defined as where all things originate. And I also found in a antique bookstore in a little town called Chester, England. You've probably been there.
Yeah.
And I looked up the word source in this old dictionary, and it was defined as love. And man, the lights went on for me. You know, I could understand source, where all things originate, and then love is a source is defined as love. And I went, wow, all things originate in love. So you set a goal for yourself, you fall in love with it. And I'm not talking about an attached form of love, but just a feeling inside you that that you love the outcome that's about to happen. Now, the question then popped in my mind, well, if all things originate in love, where does fear come from? And my answer came back from myself, is that love is presenting you with fear, saying, if you handle this, you'll have more of me, which is love. So if you let go of the fear, the only thing left is love. So, and everything is based, you know, all conflict is based in fear, anger, sadness. All of those are fear-based, basically. So when you let go of those things, what you have is love. And if you exist in love, you'll have only what you love in your life.
Absolutely understand that. Absolutely. Okay, Jim. So as we draw to a close, is there anything that you'd like to add or throw into the pot that you feel would be useful by way of passing on to the listeners?
Well, you know, that what comes to mind is, you know, when you're born, that's really big stuff, because you don't know why you're here. There's a lot of lights come on all of a sudden, so it's like big stuff coming into this world. And when you die, nobody really knows where you're going from here, and that's pretty big stuff. But in between, that's all small stuff, so don't take it too seriously, because you're not going to get out alive. But just live your life, enjoy it, and let go of the fears, and you know, work toward helping others.
On that positive note, very positive note, Jim, it's been a real pleasure to have spent time with you, and please accept once again my sincere gratitude for your invaluable insights. All that remains for me now is to extend that gratitude to you, the listeners, and hope that you feel you've benefited from Jim's experience and wisdom. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Jim. Until the next time, take care and best wishes.
Thanks for listening to the Mastering the Game of Life podcast. Drop a line to paul@paullowehearts.com with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Alternatively, check out Paul's website at paullowehearts.com or any of his social media feeds under the same name. Remember, mastering life starts by embracing our hearts.